Are you overtraining or simply under-recovering? Ladies, I've got a juicy episode today. Those of us who love to train, we love to work out, we've hit a bit of a sticking point. You may have heard me talking about this. If you're a client of mine, overtraining, there's nothing more frustrating than if you are a woman who you love to work out, you love to feel fit, you love to get after that first thing in the morning workout, but then the weight won't budge. Something's just not adding up. You're putting in all of the effort, you're seeming to do all of the things. I want to talk about what could be the missing puzzle piece for you. Welcome back to the Nicola Graham Podcast. Ladies, this is the opposite end of the spectrum. I've done a fair few podcasts on how to get the ball rolling, how to get things in motion to progress towards your goals. But for the opposite end of the spectrum, and I see this with more and more women, I must say, more recently, is overtraining, the opposite end of the spectrum. So again, we've got this ideal. Whether or not that's a body weight or a dress size, it's not always. Sometimes it is just a feeling. And we're putting all of that effort and energy into our training. But we're still no closer to that feeling. We still don't love what we see on the photograph. And so I want to get into it today because there is a loophole, and it is paying attention to our recovery. Something that we maybe didn't have to do 10 years ago, but here we are in the bracket of I think the majority of us are 35 plus. And we've got to start paying attention to this. I'm speaking about how we look on the photograph. This can be my unfiltered for this week. I had a little bit of an eye-opening event this morning. So I think I've spoken about this guy on here before. I went into my local shop in the village near to where I live, and a guy in the shop is always picking my brains about fitness and going to the gym, and he wants to get in shape, and he wants to get his wife into keeping fit, and they recently had a baby, in the last 12 months. So he really wants to turn things around. He works in a shop where, chocolate and crisps and everything else is at his fingertips permanently. Anyway, so a couple of weeks or months ago, and I think I have mentioned it on here, I commented to him that he was looking great. He visibly looked like he'd lost a considerable amount of weight. So I would never normally comment on someone's body weight, but bearing in mind we have these conversations all of the time about he wants to get in shape, and he looked like he'd lost all of this weight. So this was pre-holidays. He goes on holiday, going through the same fluctuations as us women do. This is the aha moment for me. So then bumps into him again this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, you are looking so good. And he was like, oh my God, thank you. I really feel it. He said, I've dropped 2 stone. He's got a treadmill in the house, and he's been using that just to, just to get in his daily movement, essentially. And I'd said to him a while back about, maybe start to add in some intervals, whether it's a fast walk or a little sprint. I am that woman. If you stop me and you want to talk about fitness, I will give you the top and bottom of it all. And he said something, and it really struck me. So he said, I've got another stone to lose. And the goal really is, my baby is its birthday in December, and I want to get a nice family photograph, and I want to like what I see on the photograph. And I couldn't believe it, because I've heard women say that, obviously. I've never heard a man say that. And my husband has his own little things that he'll pick out on himself, and I'm sure we all do it. But I always felt that men and women were very different in that way. And that was so eye-opening. I drove home and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that men, maybe not all men, are feeling the exact same way. He said, I just want, and I just internalized any shock reaction, but I was genuinely taken aback when he said it. And I was like, yeah, totally get it. So I did give him my little 2 pence worth as well. I said, right, okay, if you're getting comfortable with those sprints, if you're getting comfortable with that treadmill work, now you need to throw a couple of press ups on the end. And he was like, oh, what are you doing to me? I said, listen, this is progress. If we're going to continue to progress from here, anybody listening, Never allow yourself to get comfortable in training, this is what I want to talk about today. Some of us, we love to get stuck into our training routine, but for whatever reason, regardless of feeling like we're doing all of the things and we're trying to keep our diet in check and we're getting all of the steps and we're really trying our best to prioritize, reducing alcohol or all of those other little nuances, we're still no closer to where we want to be. So I want to talk about some of the symptoms, first of all, signs, I should say, of overtraining. There have been quite a few women who've come to me in the last 6 months, I would say, one-to-one clients who I've got working with. And when we've got down to the crux of it all, they're just not paying any attention to recovery. And so they're in a better state of health. Fitness has improved, the weight that they can lift in the gym has improved, but aesthetically, they've come to me and they've said, listen, this was always meant to start as a fat loss journey. And in the process, I fell in love with training and I love going to these fast-paced HIIT classes and high rock sessions, and I'm training 5 times a week, but that fat loss goal, I'm still no closer to where I want to be. Hence, we've started working together and we've sort of, we've figured out that there needs to be a little bit of give and take. And this will be relatable to anybody who has a bit of an all or nothing mindset, and you probably know if that is you. If you're in, you're in. You're all guns blazing. I've definitely been able to relate to that in the past. Not necessarily in terms of the amount of times that I'm training. I've never felt the need to train every day or anything like that. But with the intensity, that feeling of feeling like every session needs to be really hard, all out, lying in a pool of sweat. That's the epitome of a good training session. It took me a while to figure out that, okay, some sessions can just be 3 sets of 10 on 4 exercises, just going through the motions. With most of my clients, I will program in I call it a recovery day session. And so all that means is if you are around the time of the month, so menstrual cycle, it's always good to have one of these sessions to plug in where you want to keep your training up. You feel good to get into the gym, but you maybe can't go at that usual intensity. Or it is genuinely the recovery day of the week and you want to get in and you want to move and you want to do something functional. But again, you don't necessarily have it in you to do this high energy workout, and actually it would end up being counterproductive. So some of the signs that you might be overtraining, ladies. First of all, soreness, constant muscle soreness, constant pain, never getting past that feeling of DOMS or irritation. Cravings, big one. Cravings. This is what I identify with the women that I've been working with, is that you struggle to feel satiated because, and I'll talk about why that is, because we know hormonal shifts occur during training, but we can become imbalanced if we are overtraining, and that can lead to weight gain and cravings. So if you know that you are craving a lot, high sugar, high fat, tends to be more towards the end of each day, you are somebody who trains very intensely, routinely, week in and week out, high volume every week, this could be a symptom of overtraining, a sign of overtraining. Fatigue, so just general fatigue that you can't put your finger on. And some of you listening might be thinking about how are you overtraining if you feel fatigued? But I put my hand up, I relate to this, because on some level, no amount of fatigue keeps you away from getting your session, because it's a part of who you are, it's what you do, it's what you love, it's what you enjoy. It's a big part of your day. It becomes a part of our identity. We love to work out. And so we can almost override or ignore those signs of feeling fatigued and push ourselves to a workout, which is absolute testament that a lot of it is mind over matter, because we can push ourselves to a workout, but then we spend the entire rest of the day feeling a little bit below par, just feeling a little fatigued, craving, maybe a little sore. Decreased immunity, another big one. This is another big one that I'm saying. Women who are constantly being knocked down by illness, and it's not big crazy illnesses. It's, constantly struggling with a chest infection or cold and flu, or when you're in and out of it, and you're never quite right, or you are, but it's always short-lived. And then if there's something going round, you seem to be always susceptible to it. So this can be another sign. If you are someone who overtrains and you also identify with that can be another sign that maybe we just need to pay a bit more attention to recovery. I want this episode to be almost a relief to those of you who are identifying with this, feeling like, I don't want to stop training. I love going to the gym. I love my community. I love following my program. I love that feeling I get afterwards. For me, it's my time. I've got up and I've gone to the gym this morning, and I had a crap night's sleep last night because my darling daughter, Isadora, just decided that she was going to wake up in the middle of the night, which never happens, and have a good old chat and would not go back to sleep. And I'm just not that mum who shuts the door and is like, go to sleep, I'm going back to bed. Each to our own. I get in bed with her, and and that's me then for the night. We're in bed together then for the night. But it wasn't a case of straight back to sleep. But my alarm was still going off at 5:20. And in my head, I'm lying in bed, and there's not one ounce of me that thinks, I'm going to have to miss the gym now because my sleep has been so broken and I'm missing out on the sleep. There's not one ounce of me that thinks, I'm going to need that extra hour. I'm getting up for that gym. I will find a way to create balance somewhere else. So this is what I want to talk about today, ladies, the importance of paying attention to our recovery. If we want to feel at our best, we want to love what we see in the photograph. We want to achieve that lean aesthetic. So this plays into the common struggle again, is the expectation when we train at such an intensity is that we want that lean aesthetic, and we see it on Instagram. Well, the women on Instagram look muscular, they look defined, they look lean, they look fresh, they look energized, and they're doing these workouts 5 times a week, crazy intensity, and it's that level of lean is often what women are striving for, and they never seem to quite achieve. Now, a lot of that is down to the right nutrition, of course, but a lot of it is also down to reduced inflammation, reduced stress, better recovery techniques, better prioritizing when it comes to sleep and the basic fundamentals. There's another false economy here, which is we're overtraining, but we're not building muscle in the process. So we want the fat loss, we want the muscle tone, we want that lean aesthetic, we want to look toned, we want to look firm, we want arms to stop wobbling, whatever it is, that we refer to it as. I don't think everybody refers to it as muscle tone or muscle building, but you have to be building muscle in order to get this aesthetic, ladies, in order to look lean, have that maybe tight waist, peachy bum, good legs. I'm loving this new era of women who we want strong legs. I'm thankful for this era because I've got the big old chunky strong legs, whether I like it or not. And I'm glad that it's finally catching on. not that it should make a blind bit of difference. Really, we stay in our own lane, and I do absolutely advocate that. But I spent so many years, ladies, trying my best to get those slim, just those slim thighs and just that whole aesthetic. And I'm that's just the way that I train, the intensity at which I train in terms of lifting weights. Not when I say intensity, by the way, it's not always in the ways of hit high energy, heart is beating out of your chest. Sometimes it's the intensity in terms of weights that we lift, or the amount of volume, or the time, the amount of times that we train per week. It's just my aesthetic is big old strong chunky legs. But I'm more and more women now who I'm speaking with, they're coming to me and this is what I want, Nick. I don't, I want definition. But the false economy here lies in the fact that we are going to these classes Some of the classes I love, a good high rocks style class, by the way. I just bloody love it. You feel fit, you feel strong, you feel agile, you're buzzing with endorphins afterwards. But there is a place for strength training, and it's super important for us ladies, sort of like in that 35 plus age bracket. I'm in my 40s, I would say even more so when we go into our 40s. Slow, controlled reps, time under tension, working on moving the weight with control, taking that adequate rest period between sets. This is not something that I will go to a high rocks class. You won't rest for that full hour. That full hour is back to back. You just keep moving. That's the goal. That's one form of training, which I love. But if your goal is fat loss, build lean muscle, get that lean aesthetic, there's got to be, strength training has got to be prioritized. So we're in this sort of false cycle of crushing it in training, killing ourselves to get all of these sessions and to keep up with everybody else and to push ourselves harder. But we're never quite in a position where we are building that lean muscle. So we never quite get to that image in our minds that we're striving for. Okay, let's talk about ways in which we can focus more so on recovery. So let's assume you are someone who loves to work out, you love to train, maybe you are doing the classes. Listen, from my perspective as a coach, also 42, I want the same lean, fit, I want longevity, I want to feel good in a bikini, all of the things. Like, let's be honest, we want it all, right? Definitely there is a space for high intensity, whether it's your sprints, whether it is your spin class, whether it's your high rock session, whatever it might be. Strongly recommend, I'm putting it out there, you need to be strength training 2 to 3 times a week. If you can get to a gym, you will have an advantage. You will, because you've got more access to a bigger variation of weights, more equipment. There is a lot to be said for a set of dumbbells. Like, I got in really great shape during COVID with a set of dumbbells and a barbell. I train women who get in great shape from training at home, but I would be doing a disservice if I didn't acknowledge that working out in a gym, based on the fact that you also just get out of your normal environment. So I strongly believe that getting to a gym actually will encourage you to kick it up a level also. You get out of that comfort zone. Maybe you keep that rest period a little tighter. Maybe you go for that extra weight in training, or you get those extra reps, or you add that little bit more on the end because you've just got that access. But we can still achieve the results from home, but that's my take on that one. If this is you, then we have to be paying attention to our recovery, ladies. And I want to talk about a few of the things that on paper, research backed, scientifically backed, are critical, but also some of the things that just work for me, some of the little nuances. And again, this has been a learning curve for me, because we do go from being able to train and have this level of resilience to all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I just don't recover the way that I used to, or the weight doesn't shift as quickly as it used to, or I'm noticing that I'm holding more water, or I'm feeling more bloated. Is anybody listening to this? You might know this feeling. You get an amazing session in, you feel fantastic afterwards, but what happens later in the day is you start to feel bloated, and it's a byproduct of the workout, which sounds so wild because we're working out to help us reduce bloat and feel tight around our middle, but sometimes, particularly when we get to this stage in life, 35 plus, we do start to notice things change. One of the reasons for this, ladies, is the hormonal imbalance that can occur as a byproduct of overtraining. And that would be the elevation of cortisol, essentially. So we know the cortisol already starts to rise slowly, a little more than it ever has before when we get to, there's a fly, late 30s and in our 40s. We go to the gym, we put our body under stress, we get a workout in, we we flood our system with more cortisol. Now, adding this stress on the body 9 times out of 10, it's in a healthy way. Like, in order to build a resilient body, we need to put our body under stress. So I'm not by any means vilifying cortisol. It's an important hormone in the body. Our body, for our mental state, we have to be able to undergo some level of stress. When we put ourselves under stress through a workout, that is in a healthy way 9 times out of 10. However, if you are overtraining and you're in this constant state of high cortisol, then you're going into the gym and you are doing like this really high intense run, ski, row, lift, push, pull, swing, like every exercise under the sun. You are putting your body through the mill, and you're strong. You're a strong, fit woman. So you're capable. You are capable of crushing this session. But what's happening is, so you're flooding more and more cortisol into the body. It's already elevated. It already hasn't come back down fully from your last session. What starts to happen? Well, first of all, and again, we've spoken about this in previous episodes, so please go back and have a listen, anything around hormones. You will have heard me talk about when cortisol is abundant in the bloodstream, it shifts the way in which we store body fat. And so where the body would normally distribute body fat is brought to a halt because your body's just trying to manage this fight or flight situation that it appears to be in. We want to lower the cortisol. So in that instance, fat is just stored around the middle because it's just a quick solution for the body. So calories come in and okay, we haven't got time to distribute and to digest these calories efficiently, and like just store it as fat for now. Let's get out of this fight or flight, and then we can get back to running optimally. So that will always be the body's order in which it manages. So and the other thing is that like we all, I think, can relate to the feeling of high cortisol. We associate it with cravings and we cannot satisfy with food. Like we are just ravenous. And so that hormonal imbalance occurs from overtraining because we're keeping our bodies in a constant state of stress. So on some level, it kind of disturbs sleep, it kind of disrupts our appetite, and it will interfere with where fat is distributed on the body. So, and I've said this to a couple of clients more recently, especially when it comes to appetite. Whenever I'm working with a client initially, we will look at where we want to plug in some healthy habits. Okay, largely we're getting down to work on nutrition. Sometimes women will say, okay, and I also want the full hit, like tell me what I need to be doing in the gym. I want to get all of the plates spinning from the get-go. And my recommendation, I'm happy to give you that, but my recommendation is, but we want to nail the diet first, because I want you to feel what it feels like to be nailing the diet. And if you're overtraining, you're going to struggle with the diet because potentially, and not even overtraining, if we go from one extreme to the other with you, and we take your training from 1 session a week to 4 solid sessions a week, but you've got a fat loss goal, so we're also working towards this calorie deficit, what can happen is you really struggle to sit within those calories. And so when we talk about starting small and often, what can be really beneficial is we increase energy output a little, we make our mark with workouts and monitoring the general step count, but we nail the diet because we want you to feel what it feels like to be in that calorie deficit. Because then when you intensify training, if your appetite increases, it's easy to recognize, oh, okay, so on those intense training days, my appetite is increasing. This is where I'm struggling with my calorie deficit. Okay, perfect. So let's plug something in different on those days. But if you're trying to do it all at once, it just feels as though I can't do that diet. That's not enough calories for me, because we've never got to the stage where you've been able to adhere to the nutrition. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if it does. Anyway, any questions on that, let me know. But those of you maybe started from scratch or you're ready to step it up, if the goal is fat loss, we're going to drive that through your nutrition initially, We're going to work out, but it's not going to be hell for leather. And if we want to go hell for leather, then we need to make adjustments along the way. Okay, let's get into paying better attention to the recovery and how we can support ourselves if we are in that group of women who love to train, stay fit, lift heavy. It's our release. It's my night out, honestly. I was chatting about this morning in the gym, training with my friend, and we were saying what we're going to do for her birthday. And she was like, oh, should we go for a little sauna and a little ice bath after our workout, and then we'll go for a little bit of lunch? And I was like, yeah, I am loving that we are on the same page, because honestly, like us 10 years ago, we'd have been online shopping for a dress to wear for the weekend, and we are now talking about sauna and an ice bath. Like that's our epitome of like treating ourselves for your birthday. Find your people. Hashtag find your people, ladies. Okay, the first one that you want to be looking at if you are serious about improving your recovery is your sleep. This is critical. Sleep is where the magic happens, ladies. Sleep is where fat loss occurs. It's where inflammation is lowered. It's where the body is able to detoxify, digest, rest, replenish, have us back ready to go again. This is where hormonal balance is restored. Now, I want to touch on a couple of the things that will impact the quality of your sleep, because it's not just a case of getting to bed a bit earlier. That is great, of course. But there are a few other nuances, and these are things that I have done. I also recommend to my clients, and amongst us all, we really see the benefit. So the first one is no caffeine after 12 noon. No caffeine after 12 o'clock if you are serious about improving the quality of your sleep. Some of you will be listening to this thinking, I can have a coffee before bed and I'm fine. I would argue against that. I would say that if you made those changes to your caffeine intake, regardless of whether or not you are able to stay in the bed with your eyes closed all night, the quality of your sleep will improve. So some of you, if you use like an hour ring or a Whoop, you'll know that there's different stages of sleep, whether it's REM or deep or light. And so we want to be getting a decent amount of restorative sleep every night. So there's a difference, and we need the light sleep, we need the deep, we need the REM, we need it all in differing amounts, but we want to get that amount of restorative sleep. So if you are someone who you wake up of a morning and you constantly, no matter what time you went to bed, you are waking up and you still feel fatigued, you still feel tired, you're low on energy, you feel a little hazy, maybe you feel a little anxious or a little jittery when you first wake up. So again, like cortisol is elevated. That's a sign of cortisol being elevated, which is normal. Cortisol should be elevated upon waking, but when it's in extreme amounts, we feel anxious upon waking. That can all be sign from the body that you're not getting the restorative sleep that you need. So whilst you're spending the time in bed, you're maybe not getting the quality of sleep that you need. So no caffeine after 12 o'clock. Another one, which kind of goes against what I'd said previously, not on previous podcasts, I'm talking about me as a coach, a good few years ago, is the time at which we eat our last meal. I've mentioned this on here before, but bringing that last meal a little bit earlier in the evening and giving yourself that window between the last meal and bed can really impact the quality of your sleep. And I've got to say, more than anything, this is something that I have really noticed a difference, like a positive impact from. So, an old me would have said, it doesn't matter at what time of day you eat your calories. Like calories, whether you eat them at like carbs after dark, it's not a thing. You're not going to gain body fat. Here's the disclaimer: you're not going to gain body fat if you stay within your calorie goal. It doesn't matter on paper when it comes down to body weight on scales when in the day you eat those calories. But what will matter is how you recover and the importance of how it impacts your sleep. So if you're listening to this and you want more than just a drop on the scales, you want to thrive. You want to wake up, spring in your step. You want to be able to train. You want to get after it. You want to have this feeling like disciplined and like you are just dialed in. then we need to be getting that good quality sleep. So give yourself that little break between the last meal before you go to bed. 80-20 always, ladies. It's not always going to be achievable. We know that. And, maybe over a weekend I like to have goodies of an evening with the hubs and watching a movie, and that's all okay. But 9 times out of 10, and particularly when you know that you are going to be training the next morning and you want to get up and you want to feel energized, you want to get a good session, think about giving yourself that window before bed, because what happens is you get through that process of digestion before sleep. So then when you are asleep, you get to benefit from everything that your body is intended to do during sleep, which is not to be digesting food. It is to be detoxifying and helping us restore and recover and all of the other good stuff. Screen time, obviously, no brainer. If we can reduce blue light, another real simple one is just lowering the lights in the house. So if you've got overhead lights, try to maybe switch them off and just put on lamps. If you've got like a bedside lamp, again, if it can be like on a low light. We just want to avoid those bright lights in our eyes too close to bedtime. We want to allow melatonin to slowly rise, which is the hormone that signals we are ready for sleep. Same with screens. And I am a bit of a sucker for this, because there will be 1 or 2 nights every single week that I work late. And I do feel the difference. I feel I actually grind my teeth during sleep. Not always, but I do it. And I do it more. I can tell when I've been doing it, because I wake up and I can feel the tension in my jaw. And I know that when I work late or on my screen till late of the night, I'm going to grind my teeth during sleep. And so I know I'm not getting that efficient rest. It's a real rock and a hard place, because sometimes it is what it is. We've got work to do. And again, I work with women who this is their situation. But if that's the case, then we've got to be dedicated to, right, okay, I'm going to work late Mondays and Wednesdays. And on the other 3 nights, I'm going to have the discipline to switch off screens at 9 o'clock. Because for me, I'm just not going to be able to recover. I'm not going to be able to live outside of work in the way that I want to. This is the thing, like a lot of us we're checking all of the boxes. But then that life part, that part where it comes to letting our hair down, enjoying ourselves, getting dressed up, getting on the photographs, having fun with the kids, we're not really truly enjoying being in that moment, because we're not where we want to be. And so we're constantly on this hamster wheel. Okay. Nutrition has got to be the second thing that we talk about when it comes to recovery. Ladies, this is so crucially important, to make sure that we are getting enough protein in our diet. I would recommend, if you are doing really intense sessions and you want to improve your recovery, you want to make sure that you are prioritizing protein and carbohydrates post-workout. Like, just get that refuel in immediately post-workout, because what will happen is it will ensure that glycogen stores are replenished, muscle is maintained, it's not brought into the conversation. When your body is continuing to burn fuel after your weight training session, what we never want it to be considering is using muscle to burn. We don't want to compromise our muscle mass, so we have to give the body the nutrients that it needs to preserve muscle, and that is protein. We cannot preserve lean muscle with any other macro or micronutrient. Protein is the only building block. So if your goal, whether your goal is fat loss, to increase your metabolic rate, to have that lean aesthetic, to drop a dress size, to feel fitter, to feel more energized, for any of those goals, you are going to want to be looking to build lean muscle mass and preserving that lean muscle. Like, it takes a while, it takes consistency to even build muscle. But if you're going into the gym, you're lifting the heavy weights, you're crushing the program, and you're loving the program, but then you're getting home and you're failing to hit that protein, you're dropping the ball. And don't forget, if we want to be able to then stay consistent with our sessions, and we want to be able to get back in the next day or get back in the next 48 hours and go again, then we have to be thinking about getting enough protein in our diet. I speak from experience. I certainly notice when I eat enough protein versus when I don't. And like, I'm not perfect with my nutrition. I do not hit my protein goal every single day. I should, I would like to, but maybe that's a different conversation. But if I'm serious about my recovery, and if I know I've got a big week of training, because it's something that I really look forward to. If I had to get up at 4 a.m. to get my workout in, I would find a way, because I ain't missing that training. It's such a part of who I am. If you're listening to this thinking, I would love to be that dedicated, trust me, apply yourself. Commit to showing up consistently for a period of time. You will get the same bug. There is no woman that I have ever spoken to who doesn't, on the other side of training, feel fantastic. And so we start to chase that feeling. And so now to pay more attention to the recovery enables us to continue going after that feeling, enjoying our training, but also reaping the benefits of it. So you post-workout protein and carbs, and then just making sure you're getting a consistent amount of protein throughout your day, trying to have that cut-off point at the end of the evening so that we get that little window between last meal and going to bed. And this then plays into fasting, because again, there's a lot of conflicting information online, whether or not women should be training fasted, whether or not fasting is good. There's a really popular American lady, Dr. Stacey Sims, who argues against fasting, and then a lot of my listeners will be familiar with Dr. Mindy Pelez, because I repost a lot of her content, and she's an advocate for fasting, for the importance of allowing for cell renewal and detoxification, and to regulate our insulin levels and reducing inflammation, and all of these amazing benefits. And so it's, who do we listen to? Because as with everything, we go online and you will find a narrative that suits what you want to hear. So if you don't want to hear that fasting is beneficial, you will find it. If you want to hear that fasting is beneficial, you will find it. I'm going to give the little nuance on this. I do believe that we need to be fasting for at least 12 hours. That's not even a fast. That's just normal eating. However, food is so accessible now that it feels, to even go 12 hours for a lot of people feels like it has to be intentional. It's not normal. So what I mean by this is, if you are someone who has breakfast at 7:30 in the morning, you would stop eating at 7:30 in the night. We don't need to be eating for more than 12 hours of the day. That's wild. But this is why it's such a struggle, I think, for a lot of women, and it's just become more of a struggle over the last however many decades. And this is why, quick fixes and skinny drugs and all the rest of it now are so popular, because we can't rein in our eating. And actually it stems from just brushing up on a couple of these habits that should be normalized, but they're not. So 12 hours is your standard, ladies. If you're eating at 8 in the morning, you're stopping eating at 8 at night. Rule of thumb. Don't forget, everything I say on this podcast is 80-20. There will be times when you eat late at night, you get up, you still have breakfast, as usual. But we don't want to make that the norm. We want it to be the exception to the norm. A fast is anything sort of after those 12 hours. Now, I still love to fast because I really feel the benefit. However, I will do my fast more so now of an evening as opposed to of a morning. And that is just due to the changes in hormones that I can feel. I'm not willing to ignore. I'm a woman in my 40s. Cortisol is naturally starting to elevate. I know that. I can feel it of a morning. To then go and get a workout, which I do of a morning, to add more cortisol, stress on the body. To then fast on top of that, which adds more stress on the body. It's too much. So it bites me in the butt later on in the day. I'm either ravenous, or I've got low mood, low energy, I feel fatigued, I don't recover as well. It just doesn't work the way that it did before. If I'm not getting a workout in the morning, I can fast. So there is a nuance here. But if I'm working out, I am getting my protein and carbs in. And protein and carbs, ladies, to simplify, it can be your porridge oats with a scoop of protein powder. It can be your protein shake and a banana, your protein shake and a piece of sourdough, your 2 eggs and your 2 egg whites. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but I would choose, for the best interest of my health, performance, recovery, I would choose to just stop eating earlier in the day. I'll have a lot of women say to me, that's just not feasible for me, Nick, because I work till late and I don't like to eat until the kids go to bed and da 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 da. And it's like, okay, so taking all of that into account, I would still challenge yourself that if you really want to make it happen, you can make it happen. And not in every case scenario, not every day of the week, but there will be days in the week that maybe you just make that compromise and you eat dinner with the kids instead of eating when the kids have gone to bed, or you have a bigger lunch and you have a smaller dinner in order to sort of tail off from high calorie towards the end of the evening. But that would be my take on the fasting, is that it can still be done. You know, if you want to enjoy the benefits of sort of like pushing past that sort of like 12-hour window, just stop eating earlier on in the evening. Alcohol consumption, like, it's just, the two do not go hand in hand. If you want to train heavy and hard and you want to be able to recover and you want to be able to get those aesthetic gains as a byproduct and you want to feel fantastic, skin, hair, nails, glow, spring in your step, energy, then alcohol, unfortunately, is going to put the brakes on that equation. And so we just have to be really considered when we're going to drink alcohol, is what I would say. Just be considered with it. So again, you know, going into your weekends, if you know you're going to have a couple of drinks, maybe on the Saturday evening, I would make sure that you are checking those boxes during the day of getting some general movement, eating enough protein, getting in your micronutrients, so your fruit, your vegetables, making sure you get plenty of water in and around alcohol consumption as well. It's not all, this is the thing that we tell ourselves that we're going to do that we don't always follow through. We say, well, we'll just get a water in between each drink and then you get out, and that doesn't happen. Like, make it happen. It's all decision based, ladies. You are always in the driver's seat. We just choose to ignore what we promised ourselves we were going to do when we get out, because it just feels easier to just deal with it the next day. Once you've had that initial glass of Prosecco or whatever it is that you drink, it just feels easier to roll with it. And do you know what? I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll deal with the hangover. I'll be good. I'll get in bed early. Whatever it is that we tell ourselves that we're going to do. Instead, stick to the promise that you made to yourself. Get the bottle of water, order it as a non-negotiable with the alcoholic drink, and have a bit of a plan for the next morning, is what I would say. Again, maybe built around getting some protein in your breakfast. And then the other nuanced areas that I know make a difference to improving your recovery when you are someone who likes to train and work out frequently and often with a good intensity, is paying attention to mobility, paying attention to stretching, warming up, cooling down. Like, we didn't always have to do this, ladies. I, again, hold my hand up. And I'm still guilty of doing it now. I get into the gym and I'm like, I've got an hour. I want to make the most of it. So I'm going to do like this really super simple warm up, which is like 60 seconds long. And do you know what? I'm going to get that last set. I'm going to get that last set of lunges rather than spend the last 10 minutes, cooling down. But it bites us on the butt because we end up with niggles and strains and injuries, and we just don't recover as well. And then it leads to this increase in inflammation. So inflammation in the body will naturally occur as a byproduct of trying to recover from a workout. So we can help with that stage by stretching, and actually that little stage post workout, when maybe you're still in the gym or you've just put your weights down, you spend that little 5 or 10 minutes cooling down, stretching off. There's a couple of things that happen here. First of all, those cortisol levels that were increased during your workout, you are giving your body now an opportunity to naturally decrease and bring down those cortisol levels. So before you get home, before you eat, before you do anything else, you've naturally brought those levels down, which is a positive. You also help them to lower your heart rate. And so that recovery process is made that little bit easier, because when there's inflammation in the body, and again, this can be in a healthy way because it's to help us recover from our workouts. But when we're in this constant cycle of training, we're not stretching, we're not warming up, we're constantly carrying some level of inflammation. And we know how that shows up in how we look and feel. We feel puffy, we feel bloated. Our legs can feel a little heavy. Clothes still feel tight. Like, I am working out, I am doing all of the things, but my clothes, my gym clothes, specifically those of you ladies, I'm sure we can all relate. We know how our gym leggings feel. Like, this tends to be the pinnacle for us. If my gym leggings go on and they just like, you know, they fit and I feel good, I'm like, oh, today's going to be a good day. How many times do we put our gym leggings on and we're like, these feel snug? I really want to switch these out for some baggy sweatpants, but you know, it's not always the option because we're going to get our workout, or maybe it's our uniform of choice. Like, for me, I basically live in gym leggings. And so if you're constantly carrying this level of inflammation, that feeling that I'm sure a lot of you will just be resonating with, that's part of it. So even just adding on that little stretch at the end of your session can help to alleviate that. So instead of us battling with it all day and feeling like we're not doing enough and feeling like we need to eat less and we need to be training more, and it's not that. It's give yourself that little 5 minutes, 10 minutes to stretch. Just allow the body to calm down, central nervous system to calm down. Just allow for that little bit of restoration post-workout, stretch out. We also know that during our workouts, if we cause tears and adhesions to the muscle, which we want to do that during training in order to create adaptation. But these tears, unless we then stretch out the muscle after training and lengthen everything, what can happen if you're watching this on YouTube? You'll be able to see me use my fingers for a bit of a visual. But what can happen is like we create these tears and then they sort of like, they just knot. They as the muscle repairs and comes back together, these little tears just bind together in like a knot. We know that feeling of like, feeling like we need a good massage or a good foam roll, or we just need to get those knots out. If you stretch afterwards and you lengthen the muscle back out, what can happen is these tears can just repair a little bit more efficiently. So that's a biggie, particularly again as we age, as we get into this sort of like 35 plus bracket and we just don't bounce back the way that we did. I also like to use a Theragun. Not cheap, definitely recommend, definitely will be worth it. You don't even have to get Theragun. Theragun is a brand, and it is the more expensive brand, I believe. But when it comes to health, you guys know, when it comes to health, wellness, fitness, I'm there. I'll invest. I would rather save somewhere else down the line. So I use a Theragun, not religiously, but when I do use it, I do definitely feel the benefits. But this is like those, you know, those like guns that like have the pulsing thing as like a massage gun. I'll also use a foam roller, really effective. I have like a bumpy, rigid one, so I'll sometimes use a foam roller as part of my warm-up. It can be so alleviating on your back, really gets into any niggles. But a good time to use your foam roller is when you are warm to a degree. So when you've warmed up to an extent, there's blood in the muscles, so your muscles are warm. Does what it says on the tin, the warm-up. And so it just makes the muscle a little more pliable. So then if you think about it, if you're trying to foam roll like cold legs, cold muscle, okay, the muscle's not very pliable at that point. So it hurts to foam roll, which it hurts both times. It hurts, but it's not as effective. If your muscle is warmed up, blood's being pumped to the muscle, it is ready to go, it's more pliable, actually you can get in a little deeper with the foam roller, so you get more of an efficient foam roll. Likewise, if you're going to foam roll post-workout as part of your like stretch after training, do it whilst you're still warm. If you're not doing it around a workout, do it when you get out of a hot shower, do it when you get out of the bath, you know, maybe just when you get home from your walk. It still can be done when you haven't warmed up, but just know that it will be more efficient to do it when you are feeling warm and when there's blood, particularly to the muscles that you know that you want to be rolling out. Sauna. So I'm giving the little nuances here that can really help boost and improve recovery. I've not even mentioned hydration. Does this not go without saying on my podcast that we have to be staying well hydrated for all areas of life? I'll just add that in there. Sauna benefits. I don't use a sauna very actively. I definitely want to. It's on my list. It was a goal at the beginning of this year. Ladies, if you're feeling like defeated, that the goals that you set in January are still sitting on the list, collecting dust. Well, I'm in that club. One of mine is to just get a sauna. Like, here's the thing. We tell ourselves that life is busy. We tell ourselves that we couldn't possibly have time. I go to a gym that has a sauna, by the way, and still don't use it. And I'm very aware of the fact that I can continue telling myself this, and you can continue telling yourself all of the reasons why you can't make it happen. But ultimately, if we want to make it happen, we want to make getting a sauna part of our routine, we will find a way. We've got to go out and actively create the life that we want to live. We've got to make space. We've got to be mindful of where sacrifice might need to be made. And I 100% can sacrifice that little nighttime scroll from time to time to go and take myself off to the sauna. I just choose not to. So I really want to preface this because it's something that we all struggle with. But stay really mindful of when you are telling yourself things are not possible for you. Are you just choosing to do something different? And that's why it's not possible. And I'm not saying that that's always going to be the outcome, but that really is, you know, particularly when it comes to stretching or reading before bed or taking the hot bath or getting the sauna or any of these little nuances that seem so indulgent because life is so busy. So God forbid we slow down and take a hot bath with the Epsom salts, or we get a chance to have that little read before bed, or we get to use the sauna, or whatever it might be. It feels like an indulgence. I mean, as a busy mom, it can feel like if you take a bath, it can feel like you're basically going on a spa weekend. Like, that's our new version of going on a spa break, is just I took a hot bath and I am winning at life. But believe you me, if we wanted to make it happen, we could create that for ourselves. It'll just always come with more consideration around how we spend our time and how we waste our time, ultimately. Meditation is not something that I do either. However, last night, I wanted to work out this morning. I had that bad night's sleep last night. I wanted to work out this morning. I had a great workout yesterday. I knew that I needed to bridge the gap. I'm going to talk about recovery tomorrow and I need to be practicing what I preach here. And so I lay on the bed and I sat with my legs up against the headboard for 10 minutes. Husband come in the room, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm recovering. I'm like lying there with my palms facing upwards and my eyes closed, and I'm just taking nice big deep breaths and big exhales out. And it wasn't meditating, but it was definitely a calmer 10 minutes than I would normally allow myself to have. Hubby thinks he just leaves me to it. He was like, okay, I'm going to get a wash and do my thing, and I'll see you when you're done. I'm like, don't talk to me, just leave the room. I'm having 10 minutes peace. I'm meditating. You can come and join or just leave me to bear with. Anyway, point of that is I got up off the bed and just 10 minutes and I felt so clear-minded is the only way I can describe it. I said to my husband when he come back in the room, I need to do that every night. I have just had 10 minutes of real clear thinking and I just feel good and I feel rested and I feel like I really needed that. And so I'm going to start to do that every night. And it does feel indulgent. It felt indulgent last night to not go straight into the bedroom and stick to my usual routine and be 10 to the dozen right up until the point that I'm ready to go to sleep. To actually just lie there and be still. No technology in the room. Feet up the wall, up the back of the bed. Just lying there, taking nice deep breaths for what felt longer than was comfortable. So I'd done 10 minutes, but it felt amazing. And honestly, something shifted. Definitely something shifted mentally for me. I'm often feeling like my brain is just buzzing 10 to the dozen, constantly thinking of mustn't forget this, mustn't forget, and I just felt like all of that just lifted. So the beauty of meditation, if you are someone who already does that, hats off to you. All of these little things can help to boost our recovery, because in these processes we are we're helping to calm our central nervous system. And the more at rest we are from a central nervous system perspective, ladies, the more efficient the body is able to recover. So believe you me, if you are feeling like you are overtraining, you're relating to anything that I'm saying, it's not a stage in life whereby we have to just admit defeat. We just have to be willing to do things a little differently. The body is still fully able to recover and to keep up on many levels, maybe not to the way that we trained in our 20s or our 30s, but it's still able to keep up with a pace at which keeps us feeling at our best, like we're doing enough. But we've got to pay attention to the recovery. We've got to pay attention to these key fundamentals like sleep, like nutrition, like alcohol consumption, like stretching, like mobility, like reducing screen time, like making sure that we are giving ourselves those mental breaks, reducing technology, putting the phone on airplane mode, giving ourselves a screen-free day, giving ourselves that 10 minutes before bed, whatever it might be. If it feels indulgent, good. Maybe we are just all out of the routine of indulging in ourselves and it feels selfish, and yeah, that's probably how it's going to feel until it feels normal, is what I would say. But do we not deserve to spend that time on ourselves and to indulge in ourselves and to be more selfish? I'm going to leave it there because I would say that we do. If you know somebody who needs to hear this podcast, whether it's your gym partner or the woman that you love to work out with, please send it to them. And if you've got any feedback, as always, please let me know. Drop it in the comments below. Find me a message on Instagram. Come join us in the Thriving Women community. Let me know big takeaways from this episode, and I will look forward to catching up with you all, hopefully in your more rested and recovered, more revitalised state on the next episode of the Nicola Graham Podcast.